Masechet Kiddushin Daf Ayin Aleph. Some stories and statements about proper lineage. Amar Rabbi Hama bar Hanina. Kesheh Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitaher Shebatim. Shibto Shel Levi Mitaher Techila Shneimar V'Yashab Mistaref Umtaher Kesef V'Tihad Et Bnei Levi. V'zikak otam kazahav v'chakasef v'ayu la'Adonai magishe mincha bistacha. Pasuk in Melachi teaches that when Hashem will come in the future to purify the tribes, in other words, to see each tribe and show the proper lineage of each of the families in the tribes, Hashem will start with Levi. Levi, very important. The Kohanim, Leviim, they have to know who's the proper Kohanim. How do we know that? Because it says that the refiner and the purifier of silver. So these are people that their occupation is to refine things. You purify silver. You make sure to take out all the bad parts of it and keep only the pure silver. And so they will sit. This is a metaphor for the people, the courts that will purify the sons of Levi. So you see here it says that Levi. It talks about Levi in particular. So that's how you know Levi is first. It will purge them like gold and silver, and they shall be that will be the ones that will offer offerings bistaka in righteousness and truth. So they need to be refined first so that they can go and serve in the Bet HaMikdash. Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Kesef Metaher Mamzerim. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, following the same pasuk, says a very, very different interpretation, that having money purifies mamzerim. A person's rich, and somehow everybody wants to marry them anyway, even though they're mamzerim, but it's a wealthy family, so people overlook the flaws in the family lineage, and they just ignore it, and they marry in, and then everybody forgets that they are mamzerim. Shneimar v'yashav mesarim taher kesef. Who will be able to sit and be pure? Kesef, he who is of money, he who has money. And how do we explain the rest of the pasuk according to this? My magishe mincha bistaka. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak tzedakah asa kadosh baruch hu Yisrael shemishpacha shenitme'a nitme'am. So those who have righteousness, that they offer with righteousness, Rabbi Yitzchak says that Hashem did a righteous act for Am Yisrael, that a family, once they become mixed up, they are mixed up and it's fine. In other words, if you know that a particular family, these are avadim, mamzerim, chalelim, okay, then you can't marry them. You have to follow all the laws of marriage. It depends. Some people can marry. Whoever can marry them is allowed. You have to follow those laws because you know. But if they get mixed up, how do they get mixed up? I don't know. They move to another place and people don't know, or they're rich and people don't care about it and so they overlook it, and then they have children and grandchildren, and by that time, people forgot that there was some problem beforehand. So that's it. It's okay. If you don't know that this family is a problem and you marry them, it's okay. Once they get mixed up, they get mixed up. Because otherwise, right, who could prove absolutely, go back 10, 20, 30 generations that there was never any problem anywhere in the family? So therefore, this is a great tzedakah, that if it gets mixed up, then we don't worry about it. Kufa. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel. Kol arasot Isa le'eretz Yisrael ve'eretz Yisrael Isa leBavel. Okay, we quoted Rav Yehuda already before in the name of Shemuel, that said all the lands are like a mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is like a mixture compared to Bavel, meaning the people in Bavel, that community, they're very strict in having proper lineage, and so if you know someone is Bavel, you can marry them, no questions asked. If they're from other lands, that's the worst. There's all mixed up of all kinds of people, so then you have to check out everybody's lineage, and Eretz Yisrael is in the middle. During the time of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, some of the sages got together and they said, you know what, we want to switch the status, and we want to say that Eretz Yisrael is the top. If you're from Eretz Yisrael, no questions asked. And it's the Bavel people, they have to come, and if you want to marry someone from there, they have to prove their lineage, because they felt like Eretz Yisrael is better. Amar lehem kosim atem mesimim mili ben Ainai. Rabbi objected to this because Rabbi is from the family of the Nasi, who derives from Hillel, who comes from Bavel. So Rabbi's own family is from Bavel. And so now, if the rabbis come and decide, the people from Bavel, they're so their lineage, then they're putting a thorn between the eyes of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi himself. And Rabbi says, if you don't believe me, I'll bring an Eretz Yisrael sage, a true Eretz Yisrael sage, Rabbi Hanina bar Chama, and he'll testify to you the correct version. Nitpal imahem Rabbi Hanina bar Chama, and in fact he came. Amalem kach mekubelani Rabbi Yoshmael, Rabbi Yoseh, Shama mishum aviv, kol asot Yisrael Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael Yisrael Bavel. I received this tradition way back. It goes all the way from to Rabbi, who said from his father that all the lands are considered a mixture compared to Israel, and Israel is considered a mixture compared to Bavel. Bavel is the best, and so right, Rabbi wanted to make sure that he preserved that tradition in that hierarchy. Another time, in times of Rabbi Pinchas later on, a fourth generation Amorah in Eretz Yisrael, so much later. Again, they wanted to say that Bavel is secondary to Eretz Yisrael in terms of its lineage. So, a very funny story. Rabbi Pinchas said he had to correct this because he didn't think it was correct. So he wants to go and teach in the Bet Midrash a law that was not going to be popular. So he tells his servants, listen, I'm going to teach 2 halachot in the Bet Midrash. As soon as I finish the second halacha, take me on a stretcher or a litter and get me out of there, because they're going to attack me for saying this. Okay, he's going to drop a bombshell, chidush over there, not going to be a popular message, and they're going to come attack me. Get me out of there, quick escape. So the first he comes in, and he says that the shechita for birds is not required min haTorah. It's only midrabanan. So that's interesting halacha. So now they're all looking at it and analyzing to see. Let's see what's the source. How do you know you have to do shechita? Is there a source in Torah or not? Now, this law was just a distraction, right, to make them look over there. And then here he gives the real bombshell. All the other lands are a mixture compared to Eretz Yisrael, and Israel is a mixture compared to Bavel. Bavel is the best. So he throws this tradition in there while they all are about to vote to say otherwise, right? So now he says, no, authoritative tradition, Bavel's the best, you can't switch it. Now they're all upset because they wanna make Eretz Yisrael the best. But his servants take him quickly and evacuate him. And all the people in Bet Midrash, they're all running after him as fast as they can, but they can't get him. Right? So this was a really heated issue. Anyway, Yashvu Badku ad shehigiu lasakana upershu. Since he did say that, so they said, let's go and check and see. Right, the families here that are in Eretz Yisrael, and let's try to prove that in fact we have good lineage people here. So they started checking, and they get to a dangerous place. Dangerous because some of the people that were in power there in Eretz Yisrael had problematic lineages, and just like we saw about Rabbi, the Nasi. Oh, what are you going to say? Something about him? You can't do that. But he was from Bavel, so he was okay. But there's other people in Eretz Yisrael that were important people, leaders, rich people, powerful people, and now they start looking and they say, "Oh, wait, look at that grandmother, grandfather. It was a problem." And so they said, "You know what? Forget about it." So this is another example of the principle we said before. Once people are mixed in, just let it go. You don't want to open up and find skeletons in the closet. But in fact, Eretz Yisrael had its share of lineage problems. Amar Yochanan, Hechala biyadenuhi, aval ma'aseh sharei gedolei hador nitme'u ba. Rabbi Yochanan, the greatest sage of Eretz Yisrael, says by the sanctuary, he swears, we can reveal problematic identities, right? It's in our hands to do that. But what can I do? Because it's some of the Gedolei Hador have a mixture of flawed lineage within them. They're all mixed up. Most people don't know them. If I went and did research, I can reveal them. Maybe I know them, secrets. But we don't talk about these things. We let it go. We let them get mixed up. And it's not just from some fringe families or that moved in from who knows where. These are our major Gedolei Hador. So we don't talk about this. He agrees with the statement of Rabbi Yitzhak that we just said. that once a family becomes mixed in, they've mixed in and forget about it. Amar Abaye, Af anana mitanen, Mishpachat Bet HaSirifa hayta be'ever hayarden, B'ri chaka ben Sion bizroa. Abaye says, I can prove this principle from the Mishnah in Masechet Eduyot, that there was this family called Bet HaSirifa. They lived on the other side of the Yarden, and there was this tough guy, Ben Sion, and he said, this family is out, no good, bad lineage. We don't know who this Ben Sion is, but he was, he wanted to keep the lineages known, and he said that they're no good. Actually, we're going to find out he was wrong. He pushed them away wrongly, but he was a tough guy, and nobody could argue with him. In another case, Ben Sion, there was some other case, and he said, no, they're good, they're kosher, even though they weren't. Notice we don't mention the name of the family that really wasn't good, that he said was good, because we don't, even the Gemara here is not going to mention them, not to out them, just let them get mixed in. Whereas the other family that Ben Sion said was no good, but they really are good, the Mishnah here does mention Bet HaSirifa, all right, because we should record for all time that they are good. So even within the Mishnah itself, you see that they're not interested in outing people that have problems. Kegon elu Eliyahu ba letame ultaher lerachek ulkarev. Mishnah says it's the examples of these families that when Eliyahu Navi comes, he will say what's tameh and what's tahor, who should be sent away and who should be brought forward. This could relate to who's a proper Kohen or Halal, who's a Mamzer and not a Mamzer. It's these, but only these families who people like Ben Sion came and they wrongly accused or wrongly brought forward, but everybody knows that this was not properly done. So in those cases, Eliyahu will come and fix it. And if it was, and if they're no good, he'll say they're no good. If they're good, he'll say they're good. But aval mishpacha nitme'a, only these that we know. But if it was mixed up and that's it, after a couple generations, you don't remember, then believe it. Even Eliyahu Navi is not going to come and publicize and say, oh, this family, right, 10 generations ago, there was some problem there, Mamzer. Look, it's all the way down. Look at all this whole family. Even Eliyahu Navi, even though he knows everything and he can reveal it all, he's going to leave it as is. If it's mixed up, it's mixed up. Only if there was someone that was wrongly judged, and everybody knows they were wrongly judged, like this Ben Sion cases, only those are the things that he will clarify. Tana, עוד אחרת הייתה, ולא רצו חכמים לגלותה, אבל חכמים מוסרים אותו לבניהם ולתלמידיהם פעם אחת בשבוע, ואמרי לה פעמיים בשבוע. Tosefta in Eduyot says, there was yet another family with flawed lineage, right? But like this is adding to what the Mishnah said, but the sages did not want to reveal it, right? Same principle. We see here that if it's already not known, okay, we'll just ignore it. However, the Chachamim themselves, they do keep it a secret, and they don't publicize it, but they do tell their students about certain families, certain people that are a problem, and they mention it once every 7 years, or some say twice every 7 years. In other words, the rabbis, they want to have some recognition so that maybe they themselves will not marry into those families. They're not 100%. Okay, they're not going to give them problems that they can't marry anybody else, but for themselves, they want to remember who it is. So only once every 7 years or once every 3.5 years, the rabbis will gather the students and says, listen, we have these particular families. There's problems in their lineage. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, mistabera k'madama pam achat b'shavua k'detanya. Harei nazir im lo yigale mishpachot, yeh nazir v'lo yigale mishpachot. Rav Nachman says it makes sense that it's the less often, once in 7 years, not twice in 7 years. As we see a Braita teaches, if someone says, I'll be a nazir if I don't reveal the names of the families, he should be a Nazir and not reveal names of the families. Generally, we don't want people to be a Nazir. And if someone says, I'll be a Nazir if I jump up 3 times today. Say, don't jump up 3 times today. Better not to be a Nazir. Take upon yourself a serious vow. Right? We don't like that. But if the alternative is revealing names of such families, be a Nazir. Don't reveal names. So as much as possible, we keep it secret. And so there's small circles of rabbis. They would pass it on, and try to avoid these things, but they wouldn't publicize it. Amar Rabba bar Hanan Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shem ben arba otiyot Chachamim mosrin oto letalmidehen pam achat b'shavua v'amridla pamahim b'shavua. Since we talked about one thing that the rabbis keep secret, now there's other secrets that the rabbis don't say. That the name of Hashem of 4 letters, we know the name Yod Ke Vav Ke, but the exact pronunciation we don't know. The nikudot that are generally on the letters Yod Ke Vav Ke are actually Kri Uchtiv. Those nikudot are for the way we pronounce Aleph Daled Nun Yud. We don't have nikudot. This is the most common Kri Uchtiv in all Tanakh, every time, every Yud Ke Vav Ke. So the exact pronunciation, the rabbis would tell their students once every 7 years, as a reminder. Some say twice every 7 years. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Mista Berak Yamad Amar, Pam Achat B'Shavua Tichtiv, Zeh Shemi Le'olam Le'alem Ketiv. And Nachman says, makes sense, less often, only once a week, once a Shemitah, because the pasuk says, this is my name forever, but the word le'olam can be read le'alem, to remain hidden. Let the Hashem's name has to be hidden. It's mysterious, a sign of respect, not to say it. People will use it the wrong way, take God's name in vain. So we keep it secret. Rava Sava l'midrasheh b'pirkah. Amar le hahu Saba le'alem ketiv. Rava one time wanted to teach the pronunciation of Hashem's name in a public lecture. Pirka is a public lecture that the rabbi would give on Shabbat or Yom Tov, when everybody expected to be there, his colleagues, his students, and the masses of people, just regular laymen, men, women. And so anything you say in the Pirka, number one, is authoritative, like that's the halacha l'maaseh, but it's also for the general public. So then an elder said, no, le'alem, you have to keep it secret. Well, you can only tell your students, you cannot reveal it in public. Rabbi Abinah Rameh, ketib zeh shemi uchtib zeh zichri. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, lo keshani nichtab ani nikra, nichtab ani beyud ke, v'nikra be'alef dalet. So Rabbi Abinah asked, it says on the one hand, this is my name, but then it says, this is my remembrance, or this is the way I'm mentioned. What is it? Which way is it? Which one is it? Zeh Shemi or is it Zeh Zichri? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains, my name is written one way, but pronounced a different way. It's not pronounced the way it's written. It's written as Aleph, it's written as Yud Ke Vav Ke, but we don't read it like that. Hashem's name, Yud Ke Vav Ke, seems to come from the root of being, Haya, Hoveh, Yeh. However, we don't read that. Instead, we read it as Aleph Dal Nun Yud, which means master, my master. So just to get a sense of Hashem as our master, and that's the way we say it, even though that's the way it's officially written in the Torah, is Yud Ke Vav Ke, but again, as a Kli Uchtiv. Tenor Banan, Barishon Hashem ben Shetem Asre Otiyot Hayu Mosrin Oto Lechol Adam. At first, the Hashem's 12-letter name, we don't know exactly what this 12-letter name is, right? Some of the commentaries and Kubalim have different suggestions. But originally, this 12-letter name that people would teach anyone. It means that they would teach the Kohanim, or people needed to know it. But then you had people that were just letting loose with it, and they were using it disrespectfully. So we're not going to teach everybody this name. Only those who are discreet, who are sanua, and they would use it during Birkat Kohanim, right? The 3 times you have Hashem's name, Yibarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. So while the other Kohanim were just said the 4-letter name, which is only 2 syllables, or however you pronounce it, 2 syllables, 3 syllables, but they would sing it, right? Like we do today, we sing Kohanim, so they would be singing it and taking a while they were doing it. The Sinuim that knew the 12-letter name, which takes longer to pronounce, they would mavliya, they would swallow it, meaning they would say it under their breath, quickly during the Birkat Kohanim. Tanya Amar Rabbi Tarfon, Pam achat aliti achar achi imi ladukhan v'tayeti ozni esel kohen gadol v'shamati shivli Hashem b'neimat ehav hakohanim. Rabbi Tarfon, who was a kohen, says, one time I went and did kohanim with my uncle. His wife was also a bat kohen, so his uncle was a kohen, and I listened in to the kohen gadol. Right, I was there in the Bet HaMikdash, and I was able to hear the Kohen Gadol that he swallowed the name, the longer name of Hashem, while the other Kohanim were singing the longer melody. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Shem ben 42 otiyot en mosrin oto ela lemi shesanua. And Rav says is he had another longer name of the 42-letter name of Hashem, and we only tell that to people who are sanua, discreet, anav, and humble, v'omed b'chasiyamav, and only when they reach half of their years. Well, how do you know how long you're going to live to half your years? So the Rabbi say, well, standard is 70 years, as it says in Tehillim, Shivim Shana. So 35 years old, you can't know it until you're then. You're more mature. Ve'eno ka'es, person doesn't get angry. Ve'eno mishtaked, who doesn't drink, because you can't do kohanim or serve when you're drunk, but so they don't drink at all, so they won't worry. And he doesn't insist on his rights, he yields, he's forgiving. And anyone who does know it and is careful with it and keeps it only betahara, he only uses it in purity correctly, he is beloved above, and he's beloved below by Hashem and by people, and his fear will be upon the other creatures. I mean, people will fear him, and he inherits two worlds, this world and the next world. All right, if anybody wants to know the 42-letter name, you can ask me after. It won't help though, I don't know it either. Amar Shemuel mishmehede Saba Bavel bechezkat keshara omedet ad shivada lecha bameh nifsela. Shemuel said in the name of an elder that Bavel, if anyone's from Bavel, you can assume that they are kosher until you know for sure that the certain family of Bavel is no good, right? So that's the benefit of Bavel. It's like pure flour, and you can assume they're good unless you know otherwise. If someone's from any other lands, not Bavel, not Eretz Israel, then you have to assume that they have a problematic lineage until they prove that they're good. Eretz Israel, muchzak lepasul, pasul, muchzak lekasher, kasher. When it comes to Israel, if they have a chazakah that their family is good, is no good, then it's no good. If they have a chazakah that's kosher, then it's kosher. Now, what do you do in Israel if they have no chazakah either way? Hagufa kashya. We see there's a contradiction. Amat muchzak lepasul, pasul, hastama kasher. On the one hand, you said if it's if they have a chazakah that they're no good, so then they're no good. But that means if there's no chazakah at all, then they'd be kosher. But the next clause, v'adatane muchzak lekasher, kasher hastama pasul. If they have a chazakah that they're kosher, then we know they're kosher. With no chazakah at all, we would assume that they're no good. So what do we do when there's no chazakah at all? Amar Ravuna bar tachlifa mishmei derav la kashya. Kan lahasi'o isha, kan lahasi isha miyado. Depends if he's trying to get married or if he's already married. If he wants to get married, this is from someone. If you want to marry someone from Eretz Yisrael, and there's no chazakah, well then prove that you're good. You need proof. If they're already married, b'di'avad, then and there's no chazakah, then you leave it as is. You're not going to make them get divorced. Amar Rav Yosef, kol shesichato beBavel masi'in lo isha. He says anyone whose speech, his accent, is a Babylonian accent, then they can get married, because if they have an accent, even if they're not in Bavel, we assume that they were from Bavel. That there was even if they all spoke Aramaic, this Babylonian Aramaic is one dialect is different from the dialect of Aramaic that was spoken in Israel. And however, people got wind of this, and they were able to copy the Babylonian accent so that they'd be accepted. So now that we have these swindlers who trick people with use a Babylonian accent, then we have to be concerned, and they actually have to prove that they're from a proper family. Ze'iri hava, if they're not actually in Bavel. Ze'iri hava ka mishtamet mine de Rabbi Yochanan. And now Ze'iri, he was from Bavel, so he has, higher standards of lineage. And he went to Eretz Yisrael to study from the great Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan was so impressed by Ze'iri, he said, "Come, marry my daughter." Very nice, a very big zechut to be the son-in-law of the greatest sage in the generation. But Ze'iri did not want to. So he was avoiding Rabbi Yochanan. He would sit in the back of the class over here. He wouldn't have a direct content because every time he goes to Rabbi Yochanan, he says, come marry my daughter. And he didn't want to because Rabbi Yochanan is from Eretz Yisrael. And Eretz Yisrael, even the family of Rabbi Yochanan, Ze'iri was suspect. This is maybe their lineage is not so good. So one day they were walking along and they see a big puddle. And Ze'iri, this is what's proper to do for one's rabbi. The rabbi shouldn't have to walk through the puddle. So Ze'iri lifted Rabbi Yochanan up on his shoulders, carried him over the puddle. Rabbi Yochanan says, our Torah is kosher, but our daughters are not kosher, right? I see that you're my student, and because I see you're my student because you treat me like your rabbi. Carry me like this, very nice. Okay, so we're worthy enough that you can learn Torah from me, but we're not worthy enough over here that my daughter you can't marry? What's your problem? Is it from the Mishnah that says all kinds of people went to Eretz Yisrael, our Mishnah, right? And 10 different groups. And among the groups, it says that they came from Bavel, Kohanim and Leviim. Now, did all the Kohanim, Leviim, Israel, did they all leave Bavel and go to Eretz Yisrael? No. That means that some Kohanim, some Leviim, and some kosher Yisraelim went from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Good. So you agree with that, right? So just like not all the Kohanim and kosher people went, some stayed behind in Bavel and some went, so too for all the other categories, the Mamzerim and the Netinim and the Asufim, also some of them went to Israel, but some of them stayed in Bavel. So you think you're so great in Bavel? You think you don't have any Mamzerim over there? Any halalim? Yeah, you have also the same 10 categories, right? If they came to Eretz Yisrael, that means some were left behind too. However, the Gemara says does not agree with Rabbi Yochanan, and says Rabbi Yochanan forgot the statement that Rabbi Elazar said that when Ezra left Bavel, he left Bavel as pure flour. He in fact only left behind kosher families. And although he didn't take all the Kohanim and Levim, obviously there's Kohanim and Levim that he left there, but he took with him all of the problematic families. And so that's why Ze'iri did not want to marry Rabbi Yochanan's daughter. Okay, another story. Ulai klal pumpedita lebe Rav Yehuda chazel Rav Yitzchak bered Rav Yehuda de gadal vela naseb. So Ula, who comes from Eretz Yisrael, he would go back and forth a lot. He went to Pumbedita, to the house of Rav Yehuda. And he sees, Rav Yehuda, by the way, is the one who said this statement that we started with, the Gufa, way up here, right? Rav Yehuda, in the name of Shemuel, that all the land, right? Bavel is the best land. So that's the same Rav Yehuda we're talking about here. And he said, he saw Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rav Yehuda, who is already adult, and was not married. So Ula was wondering, so how come you don't get a daughter, a wife for your son? Why don't you get a daughter? How come you're not marrying off your son? So Rav Yehuda says, where can I find someone who will be proper lineage, right? Because he's the one that said the statement about Bavel is the best, so he's very, very careful about lineage. I don't know who to trust. Ula says, what, you think that we all know? Everybody knows where we come from? Look at the pasuk in Echa that says, the Babylonians came and ravished the women in Sion, the maidens of Yehuda, who knows, right, which women they are? This happened to the whole nation, even before they went to Bavel. And who knows who might be a descendant of one of these women? And that means their, great-great-grandfather way back was some Babylonian. Maybe you'll say, we follow the opinion that says a non-Jew or Eved Kanaani that has a child with a kosher Jew, the child is kosher. And so it wouldn't matter. These are kosher women, and so it wouldn't matter if some Babylonian soldier was their father, great-great-great-grandfather. Okay, but maybe one of our families, who knows, is from these that Amos describes. He describes people that lie on beds of ivory and stretch upon themselves upon couches. Now, what's so bad about that? They urinate in front of their couches naked. They don't care. They don't go to the bathroom. They just right in the middle of the living room. Disgusting. So, and Rabbi Abu would ridicule them. So wait a second. Just because they did that, should they? It says about them in the pasuk, a couple of pasukim later. It says they're going to go into exile. The first ones to go into exile. We understand this is a disgusting thing to do, but just because they urinate in front of their couches, they should go into exile first. I mean, it's disgusting, but it's not like, that it's not the worst possible thing a person can do. Rather, this is the interpretation that is relevant for us here. These are people that eat and drink together, men and women, different couples, and they attach their beds together, and they swap wives, and they defile their beds with zera that is not theirs, and so their children, we don't know who the father is of these people's children. And this happened back in the time of Amos. So this is when and the whole nation, this is before the Galut. Who knows who might be a descendant from one of those families. Right? So therefore, nobody knows better anyway. So just marry someone. You're never going to find someone 100% that you can tell that 10, 20 generations ago, they were never a part of any problem. So Rav Yehuda said to Ula, so what can I do? How can I clarify? Is there got to be some way I can test out who's a good family? Ula says you follow silence. This is what we do in the West, in Eretz Yisrael. If there's two people that are fighting with each other, we see who is silent first, who gives up. Fighting meaning they're exchanging words, right? And they're calling each other names, let's say. And one says, you're a Eved, no, you're a Mamzer, calling each other. Who will be quiet first and just let it go? That's a finer quality, and that finer quality means they're a finer lineage. That's our test. Okay, Hamarav shetikute Rabel hainu yichusa. Rav also, a generation before Rav Yehuda, first generation, says that the silence in Bavel is also its lineage, right? That the silence test is also done, not only done in Eretz Yisrael, also done in Bavel. Hold on, we have a tradition that Rav went to this house of the vinegar strainer, interesting job, the vinegar strainer, and he checked them out to see if they were good. Funny, like he's a strainer, and then Rav has to go and make sure they're pure. So didn't examine their lineage. He said, who's your father, who's your mother, who's your grandparents, right? Didn't he do that and make a whole family tree? He says, no, la beshetikuta. He did the silence test, right? He went and found someone that they're fighting with and analyzed their fight, and he saw whether they were silent first. And Rav would explain, this is how the test works. Go see if they're silent or they're not silent. Start up with them a little, and may cause, I don't know if you have to cause a fight or just wait till they fight with someone, and then you see if they forego their honor, then they're okay. The idea behind this might be that people who have problematic lineage and they tend to be shunned by society, they're angry at people around them, and so they're more likely to start and keep up a fight for longer. That's one explanation. She says another possibility is that we saw before that if someone calls other people names, then actually they're revealing their own flaw. Someone who goes around saying that you're a mamzer, really they're projecting their own problem, their own insecurity. And so if the party that continues calling names said, no, you're bad, and doesn't stop, it means that they actually are revealing that they actually have that problem. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, ve'im ra'ita shnei bnei adam shemit garim ze bazeh shemes pesul yesh be'echad mehem ve'hem manichim oto lidabek echad b'chavero. Rav furthermore taught, if you see two people that are arguing with each other, then it's a sign that there's some problem in one of the families, and therefore don't let them get married, because the one or the other has a problem. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Navim ra'ita shnei mishpachot amitgarot zo bazo shemes pesul yesh ba'achat mehen ve'en manichin ota lidabek v'chaverta. Rabbi Yoshua ben Navim says the same law, not about two people, but about two families. Sometimes they have family feud, and they're both going at each other's throats. So then you know that there's some problematic lineage, one of them, and therefore this is a divine sign that they shouldn't be marrying each other. That's why they're fighting. Amara papa saba mishmeh derav bavel beri'ah mishon meta madai hola elam goseset ma ben holin gosesin rov holin hayim rov gosesin lemita. The papa, the elder, said the name of Rav, that Bavel is healthy, meaning the people in Bavel are of good lineage. Mishon, the people in Mishon, that's dead. They're all no good. They're all promiscuous. I don't know what they do there. Madai is sick. Elam is on his deathbed. Now, what's the difference between sick and on his deathbed? Well, most people who are sick get better. So most of the people there, if you check it, they'll be okay. Whereas in Elam, here's Elam over here. This is all places along Tigris, Euphrates, here Madai. Those people, if you check them, most of them are going to die. So it's not as bad as Mishon. There, everybody's totally dead, no bad lineage. But in Elam, just only most of them. Now we're going to define the exact borders of Bavel for the purpose of lineage, or where exactly do they have to live, that we can assume that they're of good lineage. Ad hechan hi Bavel. Rav amad ad nehad Azak, u'Shmuel amad ad nehad Yoani. So the Rav and Shmuel may name different rivers as the borders. These are two rivers that empty into the Euphrates. Le'ayl b'diglat ad hecha. And now we ask, in the northern part, right, the upper part of the Tigris River, what's the most northern place? Everybody lives along the river, so you really just have to worry about where along the river, where do you stop? Rav amad ad Bagda ve'avna, Shmuel amad ad Mushkaneh. Okay, different places along the river. Ve'la Mushkaneh bichlal, we ask, what about Mushkaneh itself? Is that included or not? Is it not included? V'amar Bichia bar Abba amar Shmuel, Mushkaneh areh kegola liyochasin. Shmuel said Mushkaneh is like the exile, meaning like Bavel, so it's good for the purpose of lineage. Ela ad Mushkaneh Mushkaneh bichlal. When we say until, we mean including the place of Mushkaneh. The Tachtit b'digla ad hecha. What about downstream in the Tigris, which is southward? Tigris flows south. What's the lowest, the most southward that we include for lineage? Amar Shmuel ad Apamya Tata'a, until the lower Apamya. In fact, there were two. Taratei Apamya Havian, Hada Edita v'Chada Tatyata, Hada Keshera v'Chada Pesula, uben Hada l'Chada Parsa. There was an upper one and a lower one. Between the two, there is a parsang of distance, and one is kosher and one is not kosher. Sulta demishta'aya meshanit. They would not intermingle with each other. One would not even lend the other fire. Fire is easy to lend because you just share a fire, and then there's more fire. You're not even giving him anything. Even that, they would have no social contact in order that it not lead to any intermarriage. Now, how do you know which one is the kosher one and which one not? The one that speaks the Mishon dialect, like Meshan that we saw above, is a place that's dead already, right? So this dialect means they're associated with that, and that place is no good. Le'el biferat ad hecha. Now, how about in the Euphrates, up north? What's the northernmost point on the Euphrates? That is still considered good. Rav amad ad akra de tul banke. Shmuel amad ad gishra de beperat. Yochanan amad ad ma'abarat de gizma. So 3 opinions. Rav says until the fortress, and Shmuel says until the bridge of the Euphrates. And Yochanan says until the crossing at Gizma. Layet Abaye ve'item Rav Yosef ad Rav. And these later sages would curse one who follows the opinion of Rav, because Rav, that fortress, is way north. And that's like, whoa, that's too far. Even people up there? No, we can't trust those lineages. Now we ask, why would they only curse if you follow Rav and not curse people that follow Shemuel? Because Shemuel, that bridge of Perat, is even farther north. Rather, they would curse anyone who follows Rav, and all the more so if you follow Shemuel, which is even farther north. Or we got the placement wrong, and in fact they would only curse those who follow Rav, but not Shemuel, because that bridge is actually more south. Meaning it used to be more south in the time of Shemuel, and now the Persians moved the bridge up north. So you can't go by the maps that are current now. You have to update them. Amar le Abaye Rav Yosef laha gisa tifrat ad hecha. So on this side of the western side of the Euphrates, what's the farthest? Amar le ma'datich mishum biram miachased de pumbedita mi biram naspe. What city are you thinking about? That's on this side. Biram, yeah, the pure people in Pumbedita, they marry women from Biram. So therefore, Biram is assumed to be within the borders. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.